This 17-inch MacBook Pro is the largest laptop ever built by Apple. It was a beast of its time and still looks pretty modern, but the form factor was dropped by Apple entirely after 2011. So why were they discontinued so suddenly? And what's this one useful for in 2025? Well, I don't think Apple stopped selling them purely due to a lack of demand. They might not have sold as many 17s as the other sizes, but there's always this spot in the market for those who only buy the biggest laptops. Because of their size, these were almost like desktops one could carry around in a backpack. They had pretty impressive parts inside as well. The fully upgraded 2011 models could be equipped with 16GB of RAM and had quad-core i7 processors. In fact, some would say the internals were quite ahead of their time. This is a slightly older 2009 model with a 2.8 GHz Intel Core 2 Duo processor, 4GB of RAM and a 256GB SSD inside, but it's very usable. You can browse the web on this thing fine to find a film to watch on the huge screen, and older versions of Word, PowerPoint, and even Photoshop are absolutely stable. This is the M1 MacBook Pro I use every day to edit video and whatever else on, and this is it resting on the 17-inch MacBook Pro. How cool is that? But anyway, the real reasons Apple discontinued the 17-inch MacBook Pros are a bit strange. You may know this already, but the 2011 models, or the last ones Apple made, were built with fatal flaws. After release, users began reporting weird flashes and artifacting on the screen, and in many cases, a complete loss of power. With so many unable to use their laptops at all, these were returned and repaired under warranty in their thousands. Apple didn't actually repair them though. Instead, they gave users entirely new logic boards and in some cases MacBooks. The problem was, though, they were just replacing them with the same models that had failed in the first place. None of the hardware had been changed whatsoever. It turned out poor quality manufacturing when it came to the graphics area of the logic board was to blame, and was affecting the 15 and 17-inch machines. Apple's solder joints were coming loose when their laptops heated up, and heat up they certainly did. The 2011 MacBook Pros were prone to running extremely hot since they were the first generation to have quad-core processors and AMD 6000 series GPUs. So Apple lost a lot of money from their bigger 2011 models, and perhaps they were keen to avoid making more of them than they had to. Past mistakes aside though, Apple were going to face serious technological challenges if they were to release a 17-inch MacBook Pro in 2012. You see, the 2012 MacBooks came with new Retina displays, with twice the resolutions of their predecessors. The 15-inch model had a 2880 by 1800 display, which for 2012 was seriously impressive. In order to keep the same pixel density across different models, which was necessary for scaling and to keep the quality the same regardless of size, Apple had to step up the resolution even higher. A 17-inch Retina MacBook Pro would need a resolution of roughly 3100 by 2000. That's just short of what the latest and greatest MacBooks have at the moment. Back in 2012 though, it's very possible such a screen would have been prohibitively expensive to produce, not to mention the power draw and amount of graphics performance it would have required. You can kind of see why Apple might have shied away from that kind of a task, even if they were technically capable of it. But yeah, enough about what was never made. What about the ones that were made? Well, I got this 2009 17-inch Pro for £37. That's just under $50 US. Ridiculous, right? I think so too. The only repairs I had to do were replacing the battery and installing macOS. Because these laptops are quite old now, these kinds of deals come up more often than you'd think. So do keep an eye out on eBay, which is where I found mine if you're looking to buy one. By the way, this would have cost £1,849 brand new. Some investment. This computer's in pretty good shape. I swapped out the slow 750GB SATA hard drive for a 2.5-inch SSD as well. Any 2.5-inch SATA drive will fit in this spot, and it's kind of a luxury to be able to upgrade this since storage is soldered into place on MacBooks past about 2018. Because of its age, the SATA connection is limited to just 300 megabits, but that's not really a huge issue because the memory and processor aren't super fast in contrast. RAM is also upgradable, by the way. I'm going to leave this how it is since it's running fine with 4GB. It's always nice to have that repairability though if one of these sticks was to go wrong. And you can double up and go to 8GB if you want to. This machine runs 1066 MHz memory, although you could use faster stuff if it were all you had. The frontside bus would just limit it back to 1066. It's quite Battle of Hastings, really. The Intel Core 2 Duo chip inside is the T9600. While it was high-end at the time, it's not a powerful chip by today's standards. It only goes up to a 2.8 GHz clock speed, and it's also only got 2 cores. Pretty poor compared to the M4 Max with 16 cores in Apple's current most powerful MacBook. So yeah, it's not a high performer. It won't do any kind of video editing these days, not well anyway. But its external design is, I think, more important. That screen is magnificent. It's a 17-inch LED panel which came in glossy or matte textured options at purchase. I've got a glossy one right here, but I have had a couple of the matte anti-glare ones in the past. Texture aside though, it's a 1920 by 1200 display. That's just above 1080p, which isn't particularly impressive these days, but was pretty damn good for 2009. Lots of elements of the design come together so well on this laptop. The screen is complemented by a DVD reader to its bottom right. The speakers are pretty loud too, since they're some of the biggest Apple ever put in a laptop. It's a great little mini cinema, really. Another interesting use for these computers is multitasking. You can get a YouTube video up on one side of the screen, a web browser tab beneath it, and then have a Word document you're working on the other side. There's enough screen space for all of those things to get a look in, and this thing still has the performance to stream video, browse the web, and write text on at the same time, no doubt about it. Going back to the design for a second, there are a couple of things I really miss about MacBooks like these. Firstly, there's a charge indicator on the outside. This lets you see how much battery life you've got left, even when your computer's closed. And you can see how much it's charged if you left it plugged in, let's say. You don't get any of that on the modern MacBooks. Of course, there's the ever-stylish glowing Apple logo, which I always like to mention, and there's also a host of really interesting ports. You've got 3 USB-A ports, which is good because, let's be real, most people still use a lot of USB-A accessories. There's an Ethernet port too, alongside mini display ports, audio in, audio out, Firewire 800, Kensington lock, and MagSafe 1 ports. And this, an ExpressCard 34 interface. You could buy extra cards to put inside here to add functionality to your Mac directly through a kind of PCIe-like interface. I added a USB 3 port to mine a couple of years ago for a video I was making at the time. So yeah, a strange laptop to own in 2025, but a surprisingly nice one for the price of £37. Thank you very much for watching. Click on my channel if you want to see more videos like this, and if you really like what I do, maybe consider joining my Patreon membership for a small fee. Subscribers, I'll see you next week.